we're just pointing out if you get your bearings here of it tomorrow when you get your free day, if you come up to this corner, you're now on the front. Take this left road here, it says town centre, that takes you down. You see the Grand Hotel, it's not so grand. Looks nice on the outside. Just got to concentrate here, they park the cars quite
look,
tight.
both sides of the road, that's stupid, isn't it? How silly is that? So say yeah, you can either walk out the hotel right and down to the main road and over the green bridge. That takes you into town, or you can do that nice coastal walk. That takes you down across it if you get to the Grand Hotel, and then the town centre is just the other side of it.
Yeah, it wasn't this bad when we walked up earlier, was it?
I didn't notice really.
No, you don't when you walk it.
No.
I didn't notice really.
You got something 10 feet wide.
I didn't think they were both sides of the road like this.
Always cars here, yeah.
Like it last night.
Every so often you get one that sticks out in you.
Yeah.
We probably walked along, don't really look at the cars.
No.
This bit we walked along, didn't we?
Yeah. There appeared to be like the Cliff Railway over here, maybe.
Well, it's a lift.
Yeah, right. Is that operational?
Yeah, it's running, yeah.
Right.
It's running when the flag's flying. It wasn't flying when we walked up to get the coach.
Yeah, that's when the clock comes. The clock tower cafe's open.
It was a part of it then.
Yeah, just to our left here, you got the lift. It takes you down onto the airport.
Okay, yeah.
Down the bottom.
Oh, actually queuing for it there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, that'd be good to do that, wouldn't
You go down and then you can walk right along to the... This road here is just up there. They've got a coach park on the left. You can get about 6 or 7 coaches.
Is that where you're
Yeah, that's where we
Yeah,
start.
that's it.
Just going to take you up here because I want to show you something up here on the way out.
Boat there.
Did anybody used to watch The Royal?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll show you where it was filmed.
Right. That's what Pamela wants to know.
Got them charging down.
It's raining.
It's quite wide, isn't it, this bit?
Suddenly.
There's a building coming up on the right now with a green domes on the top.
The clock tower.
That's where The Royal was filmed.
Sorry,
You'll
Mum?
recognise it in a minute when I turn right. You'll see where the ambulances used to go in and out on the programme.
Oh, that's where that's where
That one here? Right?
Yeah. I never saw any of that.
No, I didn't watch it.
Just past the building to the right now, you see the archway with the blue doors,
Oh, yeah.
blue gates.
Hmm.
You recognise that? Yeah.
Look. It's open turning right here. Let somebody let us out.
Oh gosh. Queued up, isn't it? Yeah, Citroen's helpful.
Oh
bus stop, look at that. It's a bus shelter. Why is it going down the side of the road?
Well, of course, we're in a bus lane. You see, that's his.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, yeah. Buses and coaches again.
It does make a difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm going down into town this weekend. We'll go left here.
A64. Rang on this morning and they're fully booked until 3:45 this afternoon. So, we do some holidays that stay in York. January and March we do some nice reasonably priced holidays. You actually stay in the centre of York. I say you get 3 days if you want to spend in York.
And you could book it up, you know, before.
It's worth doing that one.
Like early in the morning after breakfast.
One in January is only about under £200, I think. It's the best
I'd
ever
quite
holiday
like to
value.
do that.
So it's worth doing if you want to do it. And the Railway Museum is open then and quite a bit. York, there's enough to do in York. So you'll never cover it all in a day. So it's worth coming back again.
Yeah.
I like to do it.
Not a bad idea at all.
It's a lovely bit. Never used to be like that.
It's a big river in
It's a
there.
mirror. Is it 30? There was something good mirror on. Which is this what we passed, wasn't it?
Yeah, this got me our first sights of the town yesterday.
It's not supposed to rain yet, is it?
No, it's ahead of its time. Bet it'll stop time we get to York.
Oh, that's right. I'll take your word for it. In a minute on the left, you'll see the old round trees. Chocolate factory.
Oh, right.
It's now Nestle's. I can't remember how many thousand. They're still making so many thousand Kit Kats a day, apparently. If you like them.
Round trees of Europe.
Of course, Roundtrees was a big employer years ago. Had all the houses here for the workers to live in.
Crossing at some sort. Oh yeah, railway crossing. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
There it is, the Nestle chocolate factory just here on the left.
The big chimney.
There.
No, the name is
Nestle, they call it now.
Yeah.
That's what it used to be called Roundtrees, isn't it?
that's Roundtree's oldest estate. These houses in here probably belong to it at one time.
I think they're named Nestle, which is Roundtrees.
Taken over by big international concern.
A minute on the right, we'll have the
they
Big
make sweet
Brook
coffee
Hospital.
made, don't they?
When you're in the Cook's Park, it's called Union Terrace. It's opposite St John's University, so you could get lost. We're in Union Terrace. There's a hospital on our right now.
Mm.
Very busy.
Looks like the back of beyond, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What we see to do here. It all looks very different in the sunshine.
So the Cook's Park's just coming out on our right. So all you do basically is follow this road on down to the lights, go into the left, you'll be right by the Minster. And we're the only coach here.
Union. What's it called? Union Terrace, Coach Park.
Yeah, this is Union Terrace. As you go on down there, you go into Gilly Gate. So when you get to the bottom, go in through the archway and you're right by the Minster.
And the shops and all that.
And the cars parked there.
And then probably walk on in a straight line once you turn left, and that will take you along through the shopping centre, and then you'll come to the Shambles. You'll come into like a square area. The Shambles is off down to the right. I looked on the internet and wanted to look at the tour buses. It looks like they're running. If you want a tour bus, walk down there where I said turn left into the arch. Just across the road from there is where the tour buses go from. In the square there you'll see the red sign with the board. I think it's £10. It's about an hour's trip if you go on the bus. It takes you all the way around York.
It's probably worth doing in this weather. Walking.
Okay, so if we say it's 11:30, just gone now. So if we say 3:30, and I'll have the coach open from 3 o'clock onwards. If you want to come back,
Right,
let's sit.
3:30 the latest.
So 3:30 depart. I'll be open from 2:45-ish, 3 o'clock. All right, and then so if you want to come back for a sit or a cup of tea, I shall be here. Okay,
Put your
so
mask on.
just say go ahead.
Quite expensive. I thought it was at least £12.
Oh, they're getting on already, look, those people. They said £10, didn't they?
Is it 10? That's not bad then. Oh, you can hop on and hop off when you feel like it.
Yeah.
its history, York has had different names, and the Romans called it Iberacum. Now, coming up on your right is one of the stone cats of York. So just after the chemist's sign, you'll see a building with a lantern on the right. Beneath the lantern is a little stone cat. There's 25 of these to spot around the city. I shall try and point a few more out to you. Many of them you'll only see when you walk through the city later, but we've passed 4 or 5 of them along the way. I'll try and point them out to you. They're all at the level with us on the top deck. So perfect, really. Perfect.
It's quite good actually, sitting here tonight.
Now the Salvation Army buildings to your left, it's still got a lot of its inscribed stonework. The Salvation Army didn't have that building at first. When they first met in the centre of town, they just met on the streets for their prayer meeting. And this led, unfortunately, to a riot because some local mischief makers decided to cause trouble, and the press said at the time it was more likely to inspire wickedness than the will of God. So that was a bit of a PR disaster for them at first, but so they were very glad to get their own building, I'm sure, after that. The street we're on is called Gillygate. A lot of the streets in York, you'll notice, end with the word gate. You might have already come across Petergate or Stonegate or Gudrun Gate. The word gate is a Viking word for street. So it's nothing to do with gates at all. Gata is the Viking word for street. And many of the streets in York owe their existence still to the Viking street plan, which has been here for 1200 years. But some of the streets are even built on older pathways that the Romans had. So Stonegate and Petergate, which form a junction at the Minster, they're following the old Roman pathways through the old Roman fortress. Not the Roman town. The Roman town was actually on the other side of the river where the train station is. So the Romans called it Iberacum. When it became an Anglo-Saxon city, much later, they didn't call it York either. The Angles, who it was specifically, not the Saxons, because the Saxons were down south, the Angles up north, they called it Earthwick. And it was after that that the Vikings conquered the city and pronounced it Jorvik instead. It was only after 1066 that it became York. Now city walls are to your right, a wonderful stretch of them, built on an earlier Viking embankment defence, and the city walls built on top. To your left are the Victorian buildings of St John University. And beyond the walls to your right, you'll be able to see York Minster as well. We've got a good view of it from here. You can see quite a bit of it, including, in a moment, you'll be able to see the Great East Window, the biggest stained glass window in Europe. It's the size of a tennis court, that window. Maybe it doesn't look it from here, but it's absolutely vast. It's got more than 300 panes of stained glass in it. And those stained glass create pictures of the Bible stories. It's a time when most people couldn't read the Bible for themselves, so they got the picture version instead. If you keep looking to your right at the junction, you'll see Monk Bar, the second of the walled gate entrances into the city, and this is where you could get off if you'd started the walls at Exhibition Square. George Hudson, and you lived at number 44, coming up on your right, the one with the big white door frame and the black door. This was a wealthy place to live in Georgian and Victorian times. So a rich person like George Hudson made it his home. The Vikings came to the Anglo-Saxon city. The Vikings came in 866. They'd heard about the rich treasures that were in the quite new Minster at the time. They'd heard about the Anglo-Saxon trading town of Earthwick being an important seat of commerce, and they were very keen to get their hands on some of these treasures. So the big Viking leader, Ivar the Boneless, led his army here and captured the city in 866, and for the next 200 years it was changing hands constantly between the Angles and the Vikings. The River Foss is on your left. That's the smaller of our two rivers. It joins up with the River Ouse, south of the city, and the two of them lead out to the Humber and then out to the North Sea. So these trading links with the rest of Europe were possible because of our rivers, and York's been an inland port for much of its existence. And the history is all around us, including underneath us. And in this area, 500 skeletons were found from a Jewish cemetery from medieval times. We're surrounded by battlefields as well, famous battlefields, and I'll talk about some of those later on as well. The River Foss continues to our right and then ahead of us towards that blue bridge. It was flooded during medieval times, 1,000 years ago, and it remained that way until 150 years ago. So the whole road ahead of us was underwater for several hundred years. It was flooded to make a big lake full of fish for William the Conqueror's troops when they came here. Because they came here and they burnt all the farmland round about and to scare everybody and killed lots of people. It was an event called the Harrying of the North, and they were really keen to put their foot down in the rebellious North. The only problem was burning all the farmland meant there wasn't much to eat, so they needed the fish in the new lake to feed themselves. I think a bit of forward planning would have been useful. Now, coming up on your right, there's a church mentioned in the Domesday Book. It's got a wonderful Norman tower, and it's got a little side door called the Devil's Door. See if you can spot it. It's not the main door, it's a little side door on the right, coming up in just a second. They used to leave that open during baptisms to let the devil out, because the baptism would protect the child from the devil. And the devil, who turns out not to be as big as we thought, needed somewhere to quickly get out of the church. So they used to leave that open for him, so he wasn't wrapping around inside. It's well worth coming back this way and walking down it later. Full of Harry Potter shops now, but during the medieval to Victorian period, it was full of butchers. It gets its name Shambles because the counters were called Shambles that the meat was put on display on. Pizza Hut seems to be getting a fair crowd today, but that's where the original Roundtree's shop was. They started with a shop here, and Mr. Cadbury was one of their apprentices as well. Went on to form his own chocolate empire, as did the Roundtrees here in York. Ahead of us is the magnificent lantern tower of All Saints Church. You can just see it's a big octagonal tower that they used to light a bonfire in, so people could see it from miles around if they were trying to get here at night time. The Viking centre's coming up. You could get to that by the street on your left where Nero's is, and if you look down the street you'll see they've decorated it for Halloween, so you'll see some ghosts even if you don't go to the one. So look to your left, that one. There you go. Now the treats voucher gives you 40% off if you want at the York Dungeon, if you want us to print off a treats voucher for you. And the York Dungeon's coming up on your right in a little while. Before the York Dungeon is the Grand Opera House. The Grand Opera House is where Charlie Chaplin used to perform on his tours around the country when he came to York. There's a plaque to the comedian Frankie Howard as well, who grew up in York. The York Dungeon is the one with the big pumpkins outside. Most places in York at the moment you do have to book in advance to make sure you can get in because of limited space for visitors, so make sure you do book in advance if you can. Coming up on your left is the wonderful view, especially from the top deck, of Clifford's Tower. Now this is the most visible part of a much bigger castle that stood in the area, and when we pause here I'll tell you a bit of its history. So thanks for joining us. If you've got any questions before you get off, there will be a bit of time for me to answer them. Otherwise, join us later if you want. Use us as a bus to get around town for the next 24 hours.
What time are you running with us to today?
5:30, I think, might be the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries.
So,
Thank you very much.
On and off as much as you like. Thank you. Have a wonderful time.
Certainly very knowledgeable.
Thank you.
Nice clear speaking voice.
Oh, good. So, welcome aboard. Anyway, my name's Chris, and your driver's name's also Chris. That's easy to remember, isn't it?
How long have you been doing this?
About 5 weeks.
5 weeks?
Gosh.
Very good.
So I'm loving it, even in this weather.
Yeah, you have to
But,
and a lot of spotting up to do, I expect, or did you?
yeah, well, I used to work in the museums in York as well, most of them closed.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I've got some of the knowledge already from showing school groups around. It's a wonderful city. There's so much history connected with it. Where are you folks from?
Somerset, near Minehead.
Oh, right.
Down in Somerset, really.
I like going to
So we came up yesterday on a coach tour, staying in Scarborough, and we got York today.
Yeah?
3 day tomorrow in Scarborough, and we're going on the North Yorkshire Moors trains on and Whitby on Thursday, and home on Friday.